Welcome to In a World with Real Media. I'm your host, Brad Burrow. In this podcast, we'll dive into the lives of the most successful people in business. We'll learn how they overcame adversity, took advantage of opportunities, and learned from their experiences. Learn from our experts, get inspired, then go live your story. It's In a World with Real Media. Hello and welcome to the In a World with Real Media podcast. And I'm sitting here today with Wisdom Moon. And Wisdom has a marketing company. You find them at marketingwithwisdom.com. I've actually known of you, Wisdom, for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the days when I was at Grace Church and not leading worship, but I was in the worship band and Ben and that whole crew. And, just recently we've kind of reconnected and it's great to reconnect with you and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember playing with you. I played acoustic and
Did we play together?
Yeah.
We did.
I think a few times, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's the whole Grace Church thing. Ben is like a brother to me. I mean, we were. I helped when I came to Grace. There were 150 people.
Oh wow.
And it was funny because the worship was an out-of-tune piano that the school had, and a couple speakers we put up on stands, and pretty much all hymns. We did hymns, which was fine, and then I got to know Ben and Pastor Tim, and they found out about my background. I was a full-time musician for 15 years.
Oh wow.
And traveled and tried to get signed and all that stuff, and they're like, hey. So we started writing. We wrote an album together, Ben and I did.
Yeah.
And,
Wow.
a lot of history there, and
Yeah.
helped them design the very first iteration of the building that they're in now.
Oh wow. Man,
So and all that
that's
stuff.
amazing.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff. And Ben's really done a good job out there.
Yeah.
So didn't plan on going that direction with the podcast starting out, but anyway.
That's awesome.
So tell me a little bit about what you do right now. Give me a little kind of the 411 on your marketing company.
Yeah. So I started a marketing agency 4 years ago, and prior to that, I was in Nashville for a few years working at a couple of Christian record labels doing marketing, and then really felt like there was a huge need for especially music marketing help for Christian artists and bands, and there's a lot of churches releasing music. And so that was a big focus when we were launching 4 years ago. So we'll be coming up on 5 years in a few months, and we really help a lot of Christian artists, churches with their music releases, and then we also have a few businesses and nonprofits we help as well.
So what labels, was it labels that you were working
Yeah.
for? Or tell me a little bit about those in Nashville. I'm really
Yeah.
interested to hear about those.
So I worked at one label called Centricity Music, and Centricity Music is who actually found Lauren Daigle. If anybody knows who that is,
And you're still working with Lauren, right?
not currently, no.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, when I was at the label, she
Yeah.
was developing at the time. She was a developing artist at the label. She didn't have any music out. She was writing a lot of songs and putting out a lot of cover videos on YouTube. And then so I did some marketing there, worked in marketing and publishing at the label, and then I moved on to Integrity Music, where there are a lot of church, worship songs that come out of that catalog of tens of thousands of songs that they have over, decades.
Yeah.
And so I got to work in publishing and marketing there as well. And really, I guess the way I got into it is actually I started a podcast in 2006.
Is that right?
So
That was before anybody knew what a podcast was, right?
Yeah. I was in California, and I was given an iPod for a gift, like a Christmas gift. And I didn't really think it was a great idea to have an iPod. I was like, why would people want to have an iPod? And
Is that right?
discovered the podcast category in iTunes, and then I just really started getting into podcasts, listening to them. And then I was actually full-time at a church at the time as a youth
in
and
Nashville
worship leader in California.
Oh, California.
And,
okay.
yeah. So I was like, well, there aren't really any podcasts for worship leaders. I think there were like 2 at the time, and there weren't just that many podcasts in general.
Yeah, right.
So I twisted my wife's arm because she was leading worship with me to start the podcast with me. And if you remember MySpace, that was the MySpace days. So
people are going, wait, what?
Yeah, I'm pretty old. So I basically started connecting with people on MySpace, like worship leaders. And I would have them on the podcast kind of like this, but over the phone. And we did basically conversational podcasts about worship leading and church ministry. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was getting into the arena of marketing. So I tell people I accidentally got into marketing. I wasn't planning on getting into marketing. I didn't even know what marketing was.
Yeah.
And through having my own, podcast and platform, and seeing that grow, that gave me a lot of opportunities to learn about marketing and learn about business. And when I think it was 2 months into the podcast, we were in the top 100 podcasts under the Christian category because there were probably only 100 podcasts.
Yeah. Still awesome, though.
Yeah. So that actually opened up the door for me to build relationships in the Christian music industry. So.
Did you find people wanted to, had heard about the podcast and wanted to be on your podcast? Is that what happened?
When I first started, I would always have to ask people, hey, would you do a podcast? I would have to explain what a podcast was.
Yeah.
Too. And then I would reach out to different like publicists, and it was kind of a long shot sometimes, but I would start to get yeses. And so the first one I actually interviewed, I reached out to this artist manager. His name is Paul Balash. He wrote like "Open the Eyes of My Heart."
Yeah, it's a big name.
Yeah, so
I know that name.
Yeah, he was coming to a conference I was going to in Texas. I think it was Austin, Texas. It was a worship leader conference.
Yeah.
So I reached out to his manager ahead of time, and then I asked him, "Hey, would you be open to doing a podcast?" And so I showed up with this like mini digital recorder and got to interview Paul. And then that kind of opened up doors for me to interview other people at the conference. And then after the conference, I got to interview more and more people that people would recognize, like artists that have released music or written big songs. And so And actually, Ben, who we were talking about, I asked him to be a co-host once I moved here and became friends with him.
Right.
And, around that time, I was like, man, wouldn't it be crazy if people asked us if they could, have their artists be interviewed on our podcast? And then, lo and behold, that started happening, and we started getting requests.
And it happened, huh?
Yeah, so that was pretty cool to experience that, especially something that people weren't really familiar with, and we did a lot of education as far as like how to listen to a podcast, what a podcast is, and we would literally use like Ben's office phone on speaker to interview
Is
guests.
that right? Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, it's really, really evolved, hasn't it? Podcasting has really evolved. It's pretty cool to see. So how did you end up in Nashville?
So my the website and podcast was growing. So I basically at the time was working part-time at a church as a worship leader and building like that platform, and then doing some consulting on the side too, because I had a few companies that reached out asking for some help. So I would help manage their social media and provide some marketing consulting. And one of the companies that reached out was Centricity Music, and they said they were launching basically like a worship imprint of the label, and asked me if I would help with that. And
so they came after you.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
They wanted me to join their team, and at the time I was here, and they were asking me to move there.
So you came to Kansas City first from
California? So we
California?
were in Kansas City for about 7 years, and then I had turned down that job offer at Centricity, and then at the time, my wife and I weren't really ready to move anywhere. And then I think it was like 6 months later, my wife and I were talking, and we felt like, it was time for us to move to Nashville.
Yeah.
And it wasn't actually for that job or anything, but between that time, basically, Centricity became a client of mine. I was helping with like social media and the marketing. And so I let them know, hey, we're moving to Nashville, and they asked me to come on their team again. So that time I said yes, and we moved, and I joined their team. And then, I learned a lot about the music industry because I didn't go to school for the music industry or marketing or anything like that. And they just saw what I had done and like what I had built. The podcast was called All About Worship. And so they wanted me to basically do that for the label. So
pretty cool. So were you able to accomplish that? I mean, did you start a podcast?
So it's called Centricity Worship is still going. And we actually started a podcast and a website and all the things, and started releasing music under that name, Centric Worship or Centricity Worship. So.
Yeah. Then you ended up going to Integrity after that, and then coming back to Kansas City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a really great experience, just like meeting different artists like Lauren Daigle, and even getting to see how they were being developed and their journey. It was actually kind of funny. Before Lauren, I think, released any music, I had reached out to a big worship conference, and I said, hey, we have a new artist, and she's also a worship leader. Could she come and lead worship for a session? So they gave her like a small morning session, because nobody knew who she was.
Right.
And then so I basically was her chauffeur when she came to Kansas City. I drove her to the conference and all that stuff.
Was that at Grace?
It was it was at Core.
Oh, at Core. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, yeah.
And then basically a few months after, our team basically felt like, okay, there's something happening with Lauren. It just feels different and special. And so we were wanting to be proactive in getting her out there. So I reached out to the conference again and said, hey, we really feel like something's going to happen with Lauren, and would you be interested in booking her for next year? And they said, no, thanks.
Really?
By the next year came, I mean, she blew up, at that point. And
they're like, well, you shouldn't have done that, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was a great experience, and learned a lot and built a lot of great friendships.
So are you actively looking for worship artists to, kind of help them bring their careers along now? I mean, we've got IHOP here. It seems like there's some, like Jay Thomas. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, yeah, I know Jay. Yeah.
There's some really talented
worship
leaders and artists here in Kansas City.
Yeah. So I do have a record label as well that I started a year and a half ago, and we actually partner with a bigger label, my former employer, Integrity Music, for the back end support, like distribution and some of the accounting and things like that. And so we're on that side of things. We're looking for artists. On the agency side, we usually get a lot of inquiries. So I would say
like
anywhere from
worship artists trying to
like artists. Sometimes it's outside of worship. We have a lot of like Christian pop or hip hop or different genres within Christian music. But I would say we get like 5 to 7 inquiries a week from the music side, and then some from more of the business and like nonprofit side as well.
So what are people typically sending to you? Like rough cuts of songs, acoustic versions? What type of stuff are you getting?
It's like a whole array. Even just the past few days, we've gotten just like a Spotify link, and somebody saying, hey, I just released one song, my first single ever. I'm interested in working with you guys. To another artist that's been releasing songs, for years, and they sent us like a Dropbox folder of this project that they're working on. So it's like an album, but it's like a rough mix of the songs. And then I think we even have sometimes like people that reach out and they say, I don't have any music out yet, but I would love to work with you. And we basically have to tell them, well, reach back out to us when you have some music out, because we do really review the music before we commit to anybody.
Do you do that? I mean,
we have a team, that I don't typically review it, like the initial step. But yeah, we have a team that reviews the songs because, with any marketing, the product really has to stand on its own without the marketing side of it. Marketing really helps, get it out there and spread the word and shine light on it. But if the product is not there, then there's only so much you can do for marketing wise.
So tell me, what would a typical agreement look like with a record label, in Christian record label? I mean, just educate the audience on what that would look like.
So for an artist that's signing to a label?
let's say I've got some songs I want to maybe publish or something, and I reach out to you, and you've listened to it, maybe you like it, and say, okay, let's talk. What happens?
Yeah, I would say in most cases, artists that do get signed aren't ones that reach out to the label. It's ones that the label, like A&R team, will hear about through somebody else or discover on their own through a Spotify or something like that.
So you're initiating contact.
Yeah. And, it's interesting how it works that way. I mean, most labels don't receive unsolicited music because of some legal reasons. But even the ones that do, they don't typically find gems in the submissions. It's usually word of mouth, like from somebody that they trust. So, if somebody, like let's say I discover an artist through somebody or through a playlist on Spotify, we would reach out and say, hey, would you be interested in having a conversation? And then really our structure is really different than the traditional model of labels. And that's really why we started our label. It's called Lula Street Records, and we're doing kind of the opposite of the traditional model. So a traditional model typically would be the artist basically gives up ownership of the IP, the intellectual property. So that's the composition, the song itself, and then it's also the master, which is the audio, like the recording of the song. And so when an artist signs to a traditional model, they're giving up ownership of those things. Mm-hmm. So the label and the publisher basically own both of those IPs. And from what I've seen over the years in the industry, things have really shifted from like CDs. I mean, I remember, cassette tapes. Yeah. That was kind of like my genre.
Yeah, right.
And actually, I used to do some like hip hop, and my first project was on a cassette tape, like recorded on a 4-track.
Yeah.
And then it went to CDs, and then downloads, and then streaming now. And because of that, it's really shaken the industry, especially on the financial level, to figure out like how do we make this work, because streaming, payout is a lot smaller than a download payout. So the traditional model really favors the label, where they own things, and then basically the artist receives an advance, which is kind of like a salary, and maybe they get a couple $1,000s a month as a beginning artist. But the artist or the label has to recoup that. So whatever the advance was, plus any like production costs, marketing costs, like the label is recouping all those things from the sales, from the revenue that comes in. So there are a lot of artists that you would think are super successful that actually don't see a penny from their streaming revenue. Yeah, because it's all going to pay back the label. And because, there are so many big expenses when you're launching an artist. Yeah. And the label is, investing financially into that. So they're recouping it. And then the artist, once the advance runs out, they're waiting to hopefully, get past the recoupment and then be able to like generate income that they actually receive. But even then, the percentage is more favorable to the label.
So is live performances, is that really the only way that an artist can make money right now?
That is a big way.
Yeah.
I really think live performances and touring, that's one of the most significant ways that artists can really generate revenue. But there's also other more creative ways to do it. So there's websites like Patreon that allow artists to basically really grow a community around their music. And they can ask people or give the opportunity for, their supporters or their fans to basically be part of creating the music. So they can say, here are, 3 different options. You can give like $20 a month and you get access to exclusive content every month and things like that. And then there's also like merch you can sell to, generate revenue. Some artists, depending on their genre, they may do what's called sync licensing. So that's, music you hear on, TV, movies, commercials, and things like that. And if you have the talent to be able to create those kind of songs, then that could be a, pretty significant revenue.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Feature film stuff, that would be a lot of fun. Spotify, talk about Spotify a little bit, because it's really disrupted the whole industry. I mean, by itself, pretty much, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of people that even like big artists, like, is it Taylor Swift that won't even put her stuff on Spotify now? Or
it used to be, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it really has, pennies per play versus, selling an album is a whole different business model.
Yeah.
I mean, how, as a record label, how do you even talk to an artist about that?
Yeah. So the way I look at Spotify and any streaming platform, and the way that I, really encourage artists to look at those platforms is look at it more as an opportunity for discovery versus revenue. And I think even in business, there's, that shift of mindset when you think about like places like social media, you have to think about it as an opportunity for discovery, not necessarily for direct revenue. So Spotify is a great opportunity for artists that are independent, especially to get discovered by fans, potential fans. And really the tricky part for most artists is they don't know how to take that and really, create a community out of it. So that's where we really try to help the artists think through, like short term, yes, playlisting, running ads, things like that are great to give you a boost, but those are really short term solutions. And those alone aren't really going to build a community. So we talk about like, how do you actually take that and build a community out of it, of people that are really passionate about your music and your, who you are as an artist and what you're about, So I think even in the business context too, there's a lot of, businesses that think of maybe social media in the same way, like, well, this isn't going to generate, revenue. Posting on TikTok isn't going to generate revenue, but it's more like, well, it's going to help people discover you and feel like they have a relationship with you, and then they'll do business with you.
Yeah. Do you think it's feasible for an artist to build a subscription model that somebody's going to give money to every month? I mean, obviously that's a part of how they're doing that. I mean, what would I get out of that? Of something like that? I guess that's where my mind goes from a business standpoint. It's like, okay, I love Chris Tomlin, but am I willing to pay $20, $30 a month to be able to have access to some things that he's doing? I'm not sure.
Yeah. So there's this whole idea of super fans. So if you have people that are like diehard fans of your music or whatever you're creating, then they're willing to give you money for it, to support you, and also to help you continue to do what you're doing. And, there's
like a ministry, almost, right?
Yeah.
Like supporting a ministry.
Yeah, and there's a whole concept of 1,000 true fans that I forget who the author is, but the whole idea is if you have 1,000 true fans or super fans that are willing to pay you $100 a year, that's $100,000 a year, and you can make a living doing what you love. And so the way that we look at marketing and working with artists and even organizations is Basically, there's 3 different categories of people that you're reaching. So one is a crowd. So, a crowd, you don't really see faces. You don't really know, individual people, but you can reach the masses, with a crowd. So there's benefits to reaching a crowd. So those are things like running Instagram ads. You're reaching a crowd.
Gotcha.
And then you have, customers that are, customers or clients that are willing to have some kind of transactional relationship. So you give them something in exchange for something that they're giving you. So in Spotify's case, they're paying a subscription or getting access for free and listen to ads. And then you are getting, very, very small, like $0.006
Right. Not
every
very
time
much,
they
is it?
listen. And it's more of a transactional relationship. But then community is really like the deepest level you can get with people is how do you build a community where they feel like they really know you, they have a relationship with you, and they feel like they're a part of this movement that you're creating. So I think there are artists that have, even as an independent artist, that have done it really well, where they are able to really support themselves through other people, through a community that they've built. It's hard. It's really hard to do, and I think it's really a long-term strategy versus a short-term gain. You have to really invest into it long-term and hope to see the fruits of it later. So, I think a lot of times we can create something like music or whatever it is, and then overnight hope to see the fruits of it. And I think the encouragement I would give is really look at whatever you're creating as if you're a farmer. And for a farmer, when you're sowing seeds, the next morning you don't get up and expect fruit to be there.
Yeah, there's corn.
Yeah, you have to cultivate it. You have to water it. You have to really take care of it, and then over time you see fruit. And I think that's really the right approach with marketing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what are some of the things that an artist would offer in a subscription model? I'm really curious about that from a business. 'Cause, I mean, we partner with some. Like we have a cookie decorating, a lady that does cookie decorating tutorials that we've done work for. And, and so she'll come in and we'll do 60 tutorials in a week.
Wow.
And then share in the subscription revenue from that. And people are learning how to decorate cookies. And, they'll sell those cookies like for a dozen cookies might be $70. So they are building a little cottage industry, from that. But so what would an artist be able to offer, somebody that would be willing to spend $20 a month to support them?
Yeah, I think, what you're giving as an example is like a skill, and a lot of artists, I think, have skills that they can share. So maybe it's, if you are part of this community, I'll provide guitar lessons, like guitar videos, tutorial videos, or I'm going to teach you how to produce songs or write songs, things like that. So that would pertain more to people that are, really wanting to learn some kind of skill.
Right.
So maybe not every artist wants to do that. I think there's really unlimited ways that you can approach it.
You just got to get creative. Right?
I think it's taking what are you really good at or passionate about that people would want and they would be excited about and be willing to pay attention to and engage with. Because, if you look at even platforms like Masterclass, a lot of people pay for these platforms, but then
I pay for it.
3 months later, they don't even remember how to log in, So I think we all do that. We all pay for things and then we forget about it and we're like, I don't have time for it now. I'll do it later. So for an artist, if you want to retain, that relationship, you want to really add a lot of value.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest really way that you can know what to provide is really knowing who you're serving with your music. So if you know who you're serving, then you know what they want, or what they need.
And then you build content that they're interested in consuming.
Yeah.
And would you say that the masterclass approach, I think that's been kind of groundbreaking. I mean, they put a lot of very high production dollars into their content.
Yeah.
It looks amazing, sounds amazing. They have amazing people doing it. I mean, I'm in the middle of the Ron Howard directing masterclass right now. I've done several others, and I mean, they're really, really done well. So it seems like you can see the value in something like that. I just wonder on the artist side if that's, a possibility to be able to do something at that level and really build a subscription model that does work.
Yeah. There's actually a really good book that I would, recommend people read. It's called Play Bigger. And one of the authors is Christopher Lochhead. He's been like a CMO in Silicon Valley for tech companies. And basically what their whole premise is, there's product design. People design products and create products. And then there's company design. So when you have a successful product, the next step, the logical step typically for a business is you create or design the company to scale, and you want to, you're looking at the organizational aspect. But then the third piece that a lot of companies don't think about is category design. And
Category design.
Yeah. And actually they say that you need to think about category design before product design or company design. And category design basically is, I don't know if you've heard of blue ocean, red ocean concept. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So your category design is really not even saying, hey, I'm going to be in the blue ocean, but almost creating your own ocean. I'm going to go here where there isn't even an ocean. Yeah. And that's what Masterclass, I think, did. They created a whole category and said, we're going to provide like top-notch content, very engaging content by people that everybody would recognize, that, top of the industry people, and we're going to charge barely anything for it,
So can you go do some research for me and find out what their business model looks like? Because I don't know how they make money, honestly. They're obviously making money, but they have like the top people.
Yeah.
I mean, why would Ron Howard say, yeah, I'll go ahead and teach a course on directing, and it's shot incredibly well. The content's, superb.
Yeah.
There's costs for things like that. I mean, I just want to know how they make money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the behind
the scenes. That's your task for this week, Wisdom.
I thought about it a lot.
Yeah.
And my guess is that they obviously have huge investments, going into it. So they may have a lot of investors that are funding it. Yeah. And they may not be making, for example, like Spotify, they're not profitable, for years.
Joe Rogan gets all their money, right?
I mean, there's a lot of these kind of platforms that aren't really profitable, but they're in it for the long haul, and they're trying to build something incredible. Yeah. And Masterclass, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're not profitable, but it's more they're spending, millions of dollars in the first 5 years to really just get everybody on this platform, and I think a lot of platforms like that, what would make sense, I don't know if they are doing this or not, but is basically for that course, whoever created that course, they get revenue share from that course. And hopefully they can, look on the back end and go, okay, this many people watched your content. It's kind of like the Spotify model, really. On the back end, they look at like, okay, this many people listen to this song, your catalog, and basically you're getting some kind of revenue share from it.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
I can't afford to do that approach. Unless you want to invest. But it really is an interesting thing. Tell me about Lula, Lula Street Records. What's that about? Where did the name come from?
Yeah, so Lula Street Records, the story behind the name Lula is one of my offices back a couple years ago was on a street called Lula.
Oh, okay.
We just changed the spelling a little bit to make it a little bit easier to spell when you just hear it. It's Lula.
Yeah.
But actually, in Latin, I believe it means warriors. And
okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we really feel like when we're working with artists, they are warriors that are going out into the battlefield and really like giving people tools and weapons to be able to fight their battles in life, you know?
Boy, that's so true.
Yeah.
We don't know how true that is, probably.
Yeah, I mean, songs are so powerful.
Yeah.
You know? And that's why I've been in this industry for so long, because I believe in the power of a song. And Lula Street's model is really flipped upside down from the traditional model. So we don't take ownership of anybody's music, their master or their publishing. We basically help get it out there through distribution. So like a Spotify, Apple Music, these platforms have editorial teams that will curate playlists. So if you see, New Music Friday on Spotify, somebody's curating that playlist on their team. So we can actually pitch an artist song to those editorial curators. So there's a lot of value that we bring to the artist. And another thing that we help with is really building a community for the artist, so they feel like they're a part of this team, even though if, they may be just a solo artist, and they may be in a different genre than another artist on the roster, but we give opportunity for them to connect and have conversations. And every month we actually meet with them and talk through like strategies, like what's working right now.
Yeah.
What's going on TikTok. And then we also talk through just community stuff, life stuff, and pray for each other.
Yeah.
So our model is more of a revenue share model.
So can you build a revenue source through that model? I mean, I can see the mission aspect of it really clearly, and it's awesome. But we also have to feed our families. You know? I mean, so that's where my mind goes. From a business standpoint, is it feasible?
I would say it is. It is a risk. It's a risk I'm taking, and I am treating it like I'm a farmer. So I'm looking at
sowing a lot of seeds now, right?
I'm looking at it like 5 years from now. Hopefully, we'll be able to see the results of like what we've invested and like put into this. But right now it's the sowing time, and it's hard, and harvest hasn't come, I would say. But I do think there is a lot of just opportunity for independent labels, especially in this model, because you're not putting as much financial risk into the artist. So.
And you're building relationships, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna help later. One of the things that I think about at Real Media, I want to ask you this question. I really work on my long-term goal. I would love to direct feature films. I'd love to direct faith-based feature films, not for Christians though, for lost people.
Yeah.
And do incredible stories, do them at a very high level. We've built this facility to be able to accomplish that. But in the meantime, I got to feed my family, and I got to keep everybody, keep this thing going. So that's where our corporate side comes in. So doing the corporate work, and that is that kind of what your marketing company is. I mean, would you say it's a similar? I mean, your heart is kind of doing the faith-based stuff. And to be able to do that, you need to feed the engine through corporate work.
Yeah, I mean, I am really passionate about marketing, and our whole thing is we want to work with mission-driven organizations, and we've worked with non-Christian organizations, companies that are not run by Christians. It's more about like, do you have a purpose beyond just generating revenue?
Yeah.
Because we want to help people impact, the world.
Still
in a positive
missional.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, I do geek out on marketing stuff.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it. I enjoy even like, the little things of like setting up ads and just geeking out over like targeting and, retargeting, all those things. But I guess I would say, I think a big part of it is being able to fund these things, but also it's not one of those things where I just don't even enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm really blessed to be able to do something that I love, and then also have these like passion projects as well. But yeah, I've had decades of just going through different like jobs and seasons where it just felt like, man, like literally I had a job where I would look at the clock on the computer in my cubicle, and I would look at it again thinking, oh, it's been probably like 2 hours, and it was like 10 minutes later. And I just hated,
That usually
job.
happens to me about 4 a.m.
Yeah.
The time to get up yet? Not yet. Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, so we're about to wrap up, but I want to talk to you about the tools that we have now for marketing. Geofencing.
Yeah.
Targeting. I mean, it's amazing what we have the ability to do now.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, if you're going to stay cutting edge from a marketing standpoint, it doesn't matter if it's for a music artist or for a credit union, you really need to understand technology and the capability. And then I want to ask you about AI.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, all of that, I mean, we're living in an amazing time.
Yeah.
Right
there are a lot of tools. There are a lot of things. Basically, if I talked about some of the capabilities, that's the stuff that people freak out about. And they're like, I don't want to use Facebook,
Yeah.
Like people have flipped out about like Facebook's privacy stuff.
Yes.
And my whole approach is like, there is no such thing as privacy these days.
Yeah.
I mean,
Give it up.
yeah. I mean, you have to live
Unless
off
you're
the grid.
Exactly.
Yeah, I watched this video actually on TikTok a few weeks ago where it was like a news, investigation type show, and they had 2 Google phones, and neither of them had data or service or anything. And the guy basically drove around New York with these 2 phones that were, I don't think one of them was even turned on. Drove around, and then basically they connected it to the internet afterwards, and they filtered it through their program to see what it was sending Google. And it was scary. Like, it knew every location you went to.
Yes.
And this is not having data, So
Yeah.
that's the
all
world we
through
live
cell
in.
phone.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the world we live in, I think a lot of people want to believe we have privacy, but I don't know that we really do. So, yeah, when you think about all the ways that you can get a message in front of people, it can be kind of scary,
Yeah.
Because I mean, we could actually take a list of addresses and basically target their IP addresses at home, and show them ads at home and at work,
Yeah.
just from having their address.
I mean, the power of that is amazing. You think about, I mean, even from, heating and cooling companies, for example, the houses in this neighborhood probably have a heating and cooling system that's, 15 to 20 years old. So I'm going to serve up ads and, to everybody in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
The power of that's amazing.
And you can target by their income and
Yes.
How many kids they have. Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that to me is a very interesting thing, and that's why I feel pretty good about our future. From a video content and a content company, it's like that's gonna.
I think
well
video content is so huge right now. Like especially short form video. I think there are more organizations than not that are not really utilizing it well, and because it feels daunting, and it feels like it's a huge investment. It feels like you're really taking a huge risk to just throw stuff out on TikTok or Instagram Reels.
Yeah.
But like, that's our world right now, is short form videos. People don't really have long attention spans. They want to be fed information that they're interested in within seconds.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, you're exactly right. And so the winners are the ones that are winning in that realm right now, aren't they? Especially from a marketing standpoint. Yeah, I would agree that. Okay, AI, and then we'll finish up. So I don't know what's happened like in the last month. Chat GPT has come to my attention. Discord. I don't know if you've heard of Discord, but it's the place where you can type in a description of an image and AI comes back with an image. I mean, it is unbelievable. I feel like we're witnessing right before our eyes a revolution of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's happening. It's this weird stuff. I wrote 3 country music songs yesterday. One about a Blackstone grill, just to see what happened.
Yeah.
And so, I've recorded albums and stuff like that. They're pretty good.
Mm.
I mean, the lyrics are really pretty spot on. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's unbelievable.
And there's AI that can now produce music for you too?
Well, I figured I haven't tried that yet, but
yeah.
I mean, that's on some level, it's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
On another level, it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, we could go write a worship song right now. I mean, we could type in, the things that we want to be in, and it'd come back with a bridge, the chorus, 3 verses. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like tools like ChatGPT are great tools, and it's helping solve a lot of problems for people right now, and also it's an entertainment factor too. Like what you're
it
talking
is entertaining.
about.
You type it in like, okay, let's see what's happening here.
I think things like ChatGPT, at least right now, they can't create new things. They can't just create a new idea out of thin air like we can.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that's where it's more of a tool that you can utilize to help you develop ideas. Maybe you're writing copy for an ad on Facebook or something, and you have an idea for what you want to say, but maybe you're not great at crafting that, and crafting words. So you put it into ChatGPT and say, act as a advertising, expert and rewrite this copy for a Facebook ad that targets, 60 plus year olds, blah, blah, blah. And then it will spit something out for you. And it basically helps you save some time. And, it can be a really good tool. I think, there's a danger in relying too heavily on it where we start to lose people that could really be skilled in writing. Right. And it may actually cause us to have a shortage of really great writers.
Yeah, I think that's... Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, a lot of people are going to say, well, why would I hire a copywriter now? Yeah, I think you're right. It's like that pendulum. And what we always do is go too far, right? It's inevitable that's going to happen.
I would say ChatGPT is a new category. It's category design. It's not really competing with Google because it's not the same thing.
Although I saw something somewhere where the Google board has brought back the original founders of Google because they're on red alert right now about ChatGPT and what it's doing to search engine results. I mean,
they're very threatened. Google, it's their biggest threat right now is ChatGPT.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a computer that knows the algorithms and can figure out how to write copy that the algorithms are going to like, everybody and their brother is going to be using it to write blogs and all kinds of things for search engine results.
Yeah. One funny example, because I was showing it to like my kids, and my oldest is 17, and he was just messing with it, and he put in like, how do I break up with the girl?
Oh, no.
It was giving him, it almost sounded like a counselor, the way it was like spitting out information. To put that same thing in Google, you just have, endless scrolling of articles, and you don't know, like, well, is this, credible? Is this website credible? And you have to sift through all of it, whereas ChatGPT is basically giving you one piece of advice and saying, like, this is it, So
they're guessing a point of view based on the input that you've put into Ask, And then the image generation thing is... pretty. I mean, it's just kind of fun, I did a Santa Claus on a rocket. You should see the results of it. It's amazing. I mean, it's like I couldn't have come up with the creative direction on something like that. I mean, and then you do a couple of different iterations of it, and it's like they come back different. It's really
I think
quite amazing.
The AI, there's so much coming with it.
We're just scratching the surface right now.
Dabbling into it, because even a week ago I used one of those like design AI platforms. I think it was Canva. Canva has one now. Right. And I just put in like a guy playing the keyboard, and the guy had like 6 fingers.
Yeah.
Like there was like an arm coming out, extra
yeah.
arm, and I think it has a long ways to go. But I mean, it's the hot topic right now, and there's going to be a lot of innovation coming. So yeah,
it's weird how that just in the last 2 weeks, for some reason I've just noticed it big time in the last couple of weeks. But it's definitely interesting times we live in. Well. Wisdom, how can somebody get a hold of you, if they're interested in, engaging with you, not only as a music artist, but also on the marketing side?
Yeah. So the easiest way is marketingwithwisdom.com. And then we have information on how to work with us as an organization and also as artists. I also share a lot of content just on Instagram, if you just look me up or look up Marketing with Wisdom. So.
Okay. And the last thing before we go, you have to do the movie voice.
Oh.
So, we've got, and you have the voice to do this. A lot of people don't do it, but you got to get real close to the mic and say, "In a world with real media."
All right, I've never done this before. So I'm going to give it my best.
Okay. All right. No pressure. No pressure.
A few takes, but so in a world
with real media.
In a world with real media.
Pretty darn good. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being with me today. That's awesome. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff in here. So, and we need to go, I guess, write some country music songs real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. It's the In a World with Real Media podcast. Thanks for joining us. Tell your friends about it, and let me know if you want to be on. Thanks.
This has been In a World with Real Media. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to subscribe on iTunes and follow Real Media on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn so you never miss an episode.